All right. Welcome, everybody, to the TVCRE Podcast. We're coming online with episode 9. Today we have Trever Nicoll. Welcome. With
Thanks,
Lincoln
guys.
Properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Taylor Tibbetts
Here I am again.
with Fidelity National Title. And I'm Dre Campbell with Lee & Associates. So it's good to see you guys all here. Trevor's a good friend of mine, and so it's good to have him on the show. A mover and a shaker and a broker, and now working with an incredible,
broker. Yeah,
was a broker, yeah. And still brokering deals though.
Finding deals, yeah. Working with brokers like you guys to help find them.
So Trevor, tell us a little bit about how you got started in commercial real estate. Now we are the Treasure Valley Commercial Real Estate Podcast, so.
Yeah, great question. So I did my undergraduate degree at BYU, right? And I mean, probably like most college students, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And one of my jobs during college, I worked at some horse stables.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Scooping poop.
Yeah.
At 5 a.m. in the morning.
Was it a stable job?
It was pretty stable.
Gosh.
It was steady, very consistent. The horses, were always there. But yeah, every single morning, one of my really good buddies that I worked with there, he introduced me to this program called Facility and Property Management, and that's where I started. That's where I had a bunch of real estate classes, and just got introduced to real estate and real estate development. I honestly had no clue how to get into the development world.
Yeah.
And so my original plan was just like, hey, well, I'll just study this. I'll go work in the corporate world for a few years, go get my MBA, and hopefully make the transition into development. I ended up going to the corporate world, got my MBA at Indiana, and then my wife's from up here, and so we made the move. I was like, hey, I want to do real estate and do commercial real estate. So I was like, well, no better way to learn it than go do brokerage, right? So I went and got my license, and then an opportunity came up over at BVA to go learn development and be part of that team, and it was an amazing team to be part of. And then the other opportunity came up with Lincoln Property Company, and made that move there. So it's kind of interesting how everybody has a different path, right? You ask somebody how to get into it, and there is never one way. But it's amazing.
No, I've found personally that mentorship has been pretty effective in my path so far. Did you feel like you got mentored pretty well along the way?
100%. Yeah, and not only by people that I worked around, but those in the just in the community. I mean, Taylor, I've known Taylor for quite a few years. I mean, he probably doesn't know this, but I mean, I look up to Taylor and respect him a lot. Yeah. Right, and same thing with you too, Dre. And it's just being around just like really good people is what pays off, right?
Yeah. That's what we say a lot of the time. It's a very relational business, and it's provided value by the relationships you grow in knowing the people in our valley that are doing the deals. Yeah. It's exciting.
Well, I mean, people always say like, hey, you got to network, you got to be out there, doing this. And I used to think like network was, hey, like here's my business card, do this. But I got connected with Lincoln Property Company because of one of my really good friends that I went to school with at BYU. And he actually manages an opportunity zone fund down in Salt Lake, and he made the connection because he invests in quite a few of their deals. And just because of that connection relationship, I mean, that's what networking is, relationships.
Yeah.
And building those relationships.
Yeah, and it's not this stuffy formal thing, right? It's just people that you ultimately become friends with and enjoy spending time, and the business kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is like, I used to always think that I had to try to be somebody that I wasn't, to try to put on like this front and be,
Yeah,
try
imposter
to be,
syndrome.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's like, those relationships are built when you're you.
Yeah, some of the best relationships I've had is when I've shown up to meet with somebody and I've had something hard happen in my life, and I've said, man, I'm going through this, and they say, I've went through that. And then you say, well, heck, we have some similarities here. We could maybe have a relationship, and it turns into something.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
I love that. So Trever, how did the building blocks of brokerage and then your time at BVA ultimately help you get into development at Lincoln? What were some of the things that you felt like you learned along the way, or that those job opportunities skill sets helped you develop? Or?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like I still have so much to learn. And I remember coming into this role and just feeling pretty overwhelmed because of how much I didn't know. It set a good foundation just as far as understanding commercial real estate, what makes things move and tick. how things work specifically here in Boise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because even here in Boise, it's like so different than other markets, right? I mean, Lincoln Property Company is in pretty much all your major markets. If I'm not mistaken, I think Boise is the smallest market that Lincoln Property Company is in.
Okay.
Right, and it's just such a relationship-driven market, so much more than others, right? So just understanding that, just how commercial real estate works here, and building on that foundation. But it really just, it was like a small foundation, and now that foundation continues to grow. And I used to think that, you know, at some point I'd reach a point where I know a big majority of most things, but I have so much more to go and learn.
Yeah, man,
Right.
I think that's just an aspect of life, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have in your mindset what it's going to feel like to arrive or to reach the top, and then you just realize it's all about climbing along the way.
Yep.
So with Lincoln, Trevor, now that you're in this position, how long have you been in this position?
Year and a half.
So now that you've been doing it for a year and a half, what are some of the projects that you've helped the company acquire locally and work on?
Yeah. So our first property we actually acquired was this last summer. Was a portion of the River Club property right there along State Street. Purchasing that land.
And so people who don't know what the River Club is, what is the River Club?
So the River Club is golf. I think it's the oldest golf course in Idaho, founded in 1917.
Yeah.
It was previously the Plantation Golf Course.
Yep.
Right. So it has some of the best frontage probably of any golf course in the whole valley. And of course, in my mind, it's underutilized, and I think that it's going to be a really, really cool mixed-use community that'll be built there eventually. We just have working through design and entitlements right now. And then we just closed on a month and a half ago, an industrial development deal over in Caldwell. We broke ground on that one last week. So.
Sweet.
So a mixed-use development and an industrial development,
Yep.
both in the Treasure Valley.
Both in the Treasure Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been working on another couple of projects that we haven't closed on yet, but been working on for a while. And again, another industrial and mixed use.
Yeah.
So I mean, with Lincoln, our goal is where money wants to go, that's where we'll go, right? And so we're a service provider, and so we try to match those things up.
From your guys' underwriting and analysis of the market, then it sounds like you are a believer in multifamily development and industrial development is where the money is going.
That's right. Yep. They're flowing to both those aspects. Office is actually kind of our roots, our original foundation, how we got going at LPC. And that's hard to do right now.
Yeah.
That's really hard to get done. And so any kind of office, in larger scale office, maybe it's different on, smaller type users, but we have to do kind of institutional sized deals, and those are just really hard to get equity and financing for. But I mean, the hardest thing, you always have to have a spread between your return on cost and your cap rate.
Yep.
Right. And right now, if somebody asks me, hey, like, what's the cap rate?
Yeah. On what product?
And even at that, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what is the cap rate? So that's another hard moving factor right now is like, what is
and it's
the
changing.
cap rate?
I think it's changing quickly.
Yeah.
It's rising.
Yeah. And
monthly.
how do you pinpoint it? Because as far as like larger comps on multifamily, maybe you probably know more than I do, but it's like, institutional equity will ask me, hey, like, what's the cap rate on multifamily, or what's the cap rate right now on industrial? I mean, I can take a wild guess, but our most recent comp is 6 months old.
Well,
Exactly,
and it's
right.
changing.
Because of interest rates.
Yeah, quickly.
Every day. Yeah.
Relatively quickly. I mean, there was a time when cap rates were high twos,
Isn't that
low
wild?
threes, and you're not seeing that right now whatsoever.
Those are gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm hearing it thrown around for our viewers, and I guess for us, is that cap rates in the multifamily realm are hanging around the mid fours to the low fives, and in the industrial
right.
and in office stuff in the mid fives.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm seeing it, right? And it's just that's hard to pinpoint.
Really
So-
hard. Yeah.
So you guys are doing a couple projects here, bigger projects.
Yeah.
What will the octogenarians do who play golf at 1 p.m. every day at River Club? Is the course going to be shut down? I mean, that's probably a...
So the golf course will be rebuilt.
Okay.
So it's actually gonna be a really, really nice golf course.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
That's
I think Taylor's a good member over there. He goes
remember.
over there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to do some simulator stuff in the meantime while
Yeah.
the course is down. Plus, there's Top Golf that just
Yeah.
opened up in the valley too,
Yeah.
right? So all those people that are crazy to get their golf in can still do that. But I think that the club itself has some good plans to keep people engaged with all the social stuff around the club, and it's going to be a really great end result.
Oh, for sure.
It takes a lot of creativity to see something like that. Do you think that in your job as a I'd say a developer or a development consultant, or with Lee or with Lincoln, do you see that creativity is a skill that you have to use regularly?
Yeah, because every single deal is so different, right? Trying to put together how to make a deal work, and like how each and every deal is so different, right? You have to know, have some creativity in there, right? And that's why, I mean, luckily I'm surrounded by really, really good people on the team who have that creativity.
Yeah, I've driven past the River
it's
Club
cool.
a million times in the last
Yeah.
4 years, it feels like, and I never would have thought once this would be a great site to put an apartment community, because in my mind I just thought,
Yeah.
yeah, I would have
Yeah.
never thought that, because it's just always been a golf course. So that requires someone who has good knowledge of the market as well as creativity, in my opinion.
Sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's going to be just a really cool, project and community.
Oh, it's going
Right.
to add a lot.
And what they're going to do with the golf course, like Taylor said, I mean, you're going to add it's going to be a couple holes short, not holes, but a couple of, strokes shorter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to play longer. It's going to play better. It's going to be more challenging. Have, probably the best golf course architect in the world that's designing it. And luckily, the guy who's operating the golf course currently, he has that relationship to bring somebody like like this guy from into little Boise here.
That's cool. So part of that question, right? So a follow-up, it takes creativity. And one of those aspects of creativity is the debt and the equity portions of a deal. And so can you maybe kind of cover what you're seeing in the debt and equity market, and maybe some challenges that are being faced right now, and how that's affecting deal flow in our valley? Because I know I've personally had some deals that have been challenged due to financing being a struggle. So
Sure. And financing, I mean, that's kind of what's leading everything for the most part, right? Is the debt markets. So where we are having some success, it's still difficult, but some success is like the middle market, like your local and regional banks are still putting out money. It's getting harder, and your loan to cost is usually in the 50% plus or minus range.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Whereas on a national level, it's probably more around 75.
It also depends on what type of debt you're looking for, right? Whether it's non-recourse or recourse is going to change your loan to cost or loan to value.
Yeah.
Right. But your regional banks are the ones who are lending money. Once you get above 75 to 100 million, that's when it gets even more difficult for financing, because that's kind of your local regional banks are kind of playing in that mid-market size. Once you get above that, I mean, that's when you're dealing with institutional size lenders, and for the most part, they're shut down, or just sit on the sidelines waiting to see where the feds go with their rates, right? So it is making it more difficult now. I mean, the banks can put a conglomerate together or basically syndicate their deals to pull those together, but it's tough, and that's what's driving your equity markets, your capital markets as well, is the debt, right? I mean, if you can't get financing on the backside, then why pursue the development on the front side? So a lot of guys, they'll be looking at acquisitions, but on the acquisitions front, like, they need to be below replacement costs. That's really the way to look at that. They'll look at them, or close to it, right, with really good returns. And again, like,
we haven't been there for 4 years, 5 years, maybe 7 years. I don't know how long it's been since we've been at replacement cost. So sellers then are like, I'm not going to sell it to you for this price. There's no way. Why would I let go of it for that?
That's right.
That's the replacement cost.
Yeah.
It makes deals more challenging to put together.
Yep, it does. Now, I mean, I know we're this is TVCRE, but I mean, in some of our West Coast markets right now, we're seeing specifically on like the office stuff, in the office market, that there's this middle ground right now that everybody's playing in, that the value of the office buildings, or even some specific other asset types, the value of them are actually lower than your debt coverage. right?
Wow.
And so the landlords are like, hey, like, bank, just take back here's the
Interesting.
keys. The bank's like, I don't want to take back the building, right? Like, I don't want to manage it. I don't want to take it on. And so like there's this middle ground. I haven't seen it here in Boise yet. Whether it comes or not, I don't know, right? There's also different dynamics here.
We still have a pretty low
And we
office
have a pretty
vacancy.
good, yeah. I mean, office has done really well here during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Some West Coast markets just did not fare near as well, right?
We've got a lot of nice office space too, and it seems like there's more interest still in Class A type office space, and maybe.
Well, and that's exactly where we're like, it's the flight to quality right now in every market, right? And landlords or not landlords.
Flight to quality.
Flight to quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that term before, but it seems to make sense.
Yeah, I wish I could say I made it up, but I heard it somewhere. And but that's where tenants are going. They're going to like the really nice office buildings. They're not as concerned about rates. They want to be there because think about where unemployment's been. They want to be in like the really nice spaces to attract
the
employees.
top talent, right? Because that's a competitive landscape still.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of second gen, third gen, fourth gen, fifth gen, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if there's that many gens, but industrial space come on the market recently in the Boise Valley and in the Treasure Valley because of all this new industrial space that's getting developed.
So
People
there's
are
some
going
older
out.
industrial that's
Yeah, there's been a
becoming
lot recently
available.
that become available for lease, and I assume two things, right? Tenants either purchased land when it was going up and the debt was low, and they were able to finance something and build their own building, or they're moving into some of this new space that's getting
Right.
developed by
and there's a
people
lot
like
of new space coming in.
LDK, like the one we had the conversation with them. They're doing what, 200,000 or?
Yeah. So maybe a flight to quality and more than just office. That'll be interesting to see on the industrial side if there's that same interest level in the new industrial as opposed to the.
Yeah, and we
older
started
stuff.
to, just like around the country, put in extra amenity packages on our industrial space for employees that work there.
So
in
you're
those
putting
buildings.
in showers. Or,
Interesting.
Whether it's indoor or outdoor amenities.
What would that
right?
be? Yeah, I want to know what some of these
so
are.
there's we're seeing just like outdoor barbecue areas / picnic areas, basketball courts or pickleball courts, just like really nice like patio areas for people to hang out with at during lunch or whatnot.
Wow.
And so just providing those extra amenities that help employers attract and retain employees.
How about that?
I'm all about that pickleball life. You need to get a pickleball court at every industrial
That'd be-
spot around, because then on the weekends, the users, like the residents around there, can go use them.
Oh, and all you need is some tape and a net, right?
Oh yeah,
It's not that hard to.
I don't know if
add
I've
that.
ever
so
played a
fun.
more fun sport. Like, that has to be
It
one of the
is
most
so
fun
fun.
sports you can play
Yeah.
with the lowest learning curve. If you guys haven't played pickleball yet, go out and try pickleball out. It's exciting. It is a lot of fun.
I've heard it described as fun. I've never heard it described as exciting though.
Have you played it?
Only a little bit. I guess I
would
can't.
whoop
I
your
can't.
booty. Have you ever played?
Oh yeah. We've got a pickleball court in our like where our house is.
Really? So do you go out and play?
As much as we can. Yeah.
I enjoy it. There's a couple other commercial agents in the valley that like to play too, and it's
That's a big
exciting.
deal. It's like it's taking over.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. This can turn into the TVCRE
Pickleball.
Pickleball network.
Yeah.
TVPBE. I like it. So you're seeing deals harder to do currently. What kind of deals are getting done then?
So the deals that are getting done are you have a GMP in place on your construction costs, like like your drawings are done, entitlements are done. I mean, if you can have debt already done and lined up, then you can get equity for them, because that's usually that's where it's hard is equity doesn't want to come in because they don't know what the financing is going to be like on the backside, or where the interest rates are going to be, right? Because if you're trying to get a loan locked in 6 to 8 months from now, where's the interest rate going to be?
They don't want to put their money at
what does that
risk.
do? Yeah, exactly right. Yep. And so the faster that that equity can put their money to work, then the easier it is to get the deal done. Even at that, it's still challenging, but that's what makes it easier to get the deal done. On the development side, right?
Yeah,
and
that
that's
makes
that's
sense.
what I'm kind of focusing on is development.
Is on new development,
Yeah.
not remodification of current assets.
Yeah, because if you can have some kind of covered land play or income in place while you're working through an entitlement process, that's different, right? But just straight up going and purchasing land and trying to get entitlements for it, that's challenging. That's tough. Yeah.
So where do you look for your equity partners? Or is this something Lincoln procures in different markets? How is that?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily Lincoln has a lot of really good relationships with capital groups around the country. And like I'm fortunate to be part of that process where I'm reaching out to those relationships they already have, and if I can find new relationships or find other sources of money, then we'll go to those as well. But luckily, yeah, Lincoln has that national presence where we can tap into some larger institutional groups.
And are you finding like the people right now are conservative? Are they wanting to hold? Because that's what we're seeing, right? It's like a hold environment.
It's like it changes from group to group, right? So, I mean, it's interesting. Like one group will say, "Hey, like we're still like looking for development opportunities." Some groups are saying, "We're not looking to develop anything right now. We're just kind of pencils down. We'll do some, mezz or pref lending, at this point in time. But as far as pure equity play on it, like we're not going to be
Not touching it.
We're not going to touch that right now. Yeah, so it just depends. For
So we were asking this question for multiple months with our guests, like saying, when do you think it's going to slow down? And I'd say we're kind of here.
Oh yeah.
I'd say, so I guess now the question to ask people, and we should say, is when do you think we're going to come out of this? Like, when do you think the next upswing is going to happen? Do you think this is something like...
when the Fed's pause their rate increases. I think because to me, again, like this is like purely my opinion, right? So whoever disagrees with me on this, like you can write me an email.
Which will be provided at the end of the show.
But when the Fed, because of the uncertainty, right? Uncertainty drives like pausing or kind of like fear in the markets.
Right.
And so you're pulling back, right? So as soon as the Feds, again, purely my opinion, but as soon as the Feds stop or pause on rates for a while, that provides some level of certainty because we know where we're at in the markets, right? It's like, hey, we at least know where interest rates are, so now we can, take some more bets on the market. Sure, like we have to underwrite our deals accordingly, but at least we know how to underwrite but this, this point in time, it's just a little bit harder to underwrite deals. With that being said, like there are always opportunities in my mind, right? There are always good opportunities out there. It's just like, where do you find them, and what do those look like?
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
So
in a market like we're in, the opportunities are different than they've looked like previously, but there are some really good ones that a lot of folks I think have been waiting for.
Yep.
Right?
Well, it sounds like there might be opportunity, like you're saying, on some of that office that comes back to the bank, and the bank's like, we don't want this. We don't know what to do with it. There might be people who are just going to say, I don't want to manage this any longer, and it returns.
Yeah.
And goes back home where it could, and they lose a tenant or two, and they can't cover the debt. And
That's right. So I mean, even though deals are harder to get done, there are still deals out there, right?
Yeah,
and there are
especially
still opportunities out there.
I think that we in the Treasure Valley still have a dynamic enough market where there's enough growth and enough people moving here that there's still a desire to build and develop. It's just finding the money to get it done.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Well, I mean, for example, we've been working through an entitlement process on an industrial project in South Boise for a little while now, and I mean, it's right across the freeway from Micron, right?
Yeah.
And just being out there, what Micron is doing out there, and I can't remember if they broke ground or not, on their $15 billion manufacturing fab. I mean, that's a huge investment into the valley, and the number of jobs that it brings here. I'm not sure where all those jobs come from. It's gonna be tough to pull them from here, right? But what that does, I mean, we've seen it in other markets with Intel. They've done the same thing. They built some microchip manufacturing facilities, and what that does to that whole area, it transforms it, because they kind of need this hub around them, right? And so you have this hub of manufacturing and industrial users that all integrate together out there. So that kind of changes the whole south part of Boise. But then what does it do from a housing standpoint, right? If our home builders are already on pause for home building, like what does that do to our rental market? It increases the rental market, right, and puts more stress on it because people don't want to go get a mortgage at an 8% interest rate or 7% interest rate. And so then it drives more demand on the multifamily front.
Exactly.
And so to me, like that's why I guess we're still feeling pretty good about both the industrial and multifamily front, is because of what's still happening here in the valley. And Meta with their construction, sure, it's not, at the end of the day they're not gonna have a ton of jobs, but I mean that construction
jobs in the meantime.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys are going to want to stay here. And
once you come to Idaho, good luck leaving. This place is magical.
Right, and so and there will be opportunities for them to like stay here and work because we need the workforce and the labor and the construction front. So I just see even though it's hard to get deals done, like to me there is still opportunity here, and it's just a different micro economy here in Boise.
That's a good insight, and I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that we have, like I said, all the principles in place to help this area grow.
Yeah.
And once we got a Topgolf, next is IKEA, coming down the line. It's going to be, it's just going to continue to grow. It's definitely not the Treasure Valley it is when I grew up, and you could hop in the Nampa Happy Valley exit and get downtown in 6 minutes.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Different
for
from
sure.
that. You know what's interesting, speaking of South and Southeast Boise, and some of the development that's going on there and jobs coming in, it's just as easy to get from Mountain Home to Boise as it is to get from Caldwell to Boise. And it makes you wonder what's
easier.
Or easier,
Yeah,
right? And the straighter
yeah,
shot.
yeah.
It makes you wonder if maybe the residential development shifts a little bit and we start seeing it.
Also
Going
Emmett,
out that
right,
way.
with the new highway going in out there. The Emmett
Yeah.
path is going to get easier to get into the kind of that West Boise core.
Yeah. Well, he opens up Emmett, Star. I mean, the whole area. I mean, Star's already booming like crazy, but I think that just opens it all up
Yeah.
that much more.
And it just feels like there's exponential growth, but in the big scheme of things, we're all kind of young for the
Yeah.
development of the valley, and there's other people who've said we've gone through booms and busts before, and so I just don't see how we slow down. I don't see how people from coastal cities don't want to keep leaving and coming to a place like Boise, and how the growth of national tenants want to keep showing up here because of the amount of households.
Yeah, yeah. We've been seeing data that we've been tracking that on the residential development side in particular that, lots being sold and permits being pulled has gone down quite a bit in the last few months, which I think is what we're feeling now. But with that slowdown, have you felt like the development process has gotten easier in working with municipalities? Or do they still feel just as busy and understaffed as they have been over the last year and a half, 2 years?
I mean, I think it takes time to work through that backlog. But I am hearing that timelines are getting better.
Okay,
They are getting better again.
interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether the municipalities were able to finally staff up enough to make it, push things through or whatnot, but they are getting better.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Yep.
Yeah, they probably got a little bit of hate mail there for a while.
Oh, well, and all of the companies were recruiting from the municipalities. I think we were at a panel a few months ago, and the longest tenured economic developer was like 8 months.
Yeah.
And everyone was trying to talk about economic development in the valley, but they'd been replacing people who'd been pulled into private
Yeah.
companies doing development
Yeah.
work. So it was a tough time for the municipalities to stay staffed and stay ahead of the backlog of projects and approvals. And that's good to hear that it might be getting better.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you could develop your perfect project, like you could draw it out in your mind, what would it be in the valley? What would you want to do if the perfect piece of land came along, or the perfect piece of modifiable property? What would it look like for Trever?
I've never even thought about that before.
I know. That's
Um,
why it's a great podcast question. Put you on the spot.
yeah. I mean, to me, mixed use projects are what changed a lot of communities, right, for the better. I think the hard part is about people hear apartments and they think, not in my backyard. This sucks. Like, we don't want
Too
any
much
kind of
traffic.
apartments.
Yeah.
And and so kind of go into our River Club project. It's like I hate ever calling them apartments, because to me it's a residential community is what I like calling it, because it's not, because I don't want to we don't want to just build like run of the mill stuff, right? Like we want to build transformative product and asset classes that like help boost communities.
I like that.
Right. And to me, like that to me is like a very successful project is something that increases value for communities, right? So I don't know, Dre, that I'd necessarily say like this is what my perfect project looks like, but to me that's what attracted me to development, was that development can and has the potential to transform communities for the better, right? I remember being like at BYU during kind of like the Great Recession, what happened in like downtown Provo, and just slowly development and how it just changed the entire like downtown during that time. And development has the potential to create a lot of positive for the community, but it can also go the wrong way, right? If it's not done correctly, and if the end product just isn't done at a high enough quality level.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. My wife's family is from Medford, Oregon, and I went there, and there's a river that runs through the city, like Boise, and they have not developed around the river whatsoever. Like Bend has done a great job around the river. Boise's done a great job, but along this river, it all backs up to like industrial and retail, and it's just not utilized. And it's incredible how that city has kind of suffered their downtown core and like kind of the poverty and some of the drug use and the things that hover around those areas where we don't see that here. And I agree with you. Like it's a great case study of how that river frontage was utilized. You got to think like what we've done down in Garden City with the kayaking park and the whitewater park area, like how much that's changed and created community down there. And how it continues to do it in Boise. Boise continues to utilize the river as like a focal point. And I love your heart for that, right? Like it's a way that development can be a way to create community. And especially as we progress in like the stage of where we're at in the United States and development in general and like a macro level, we've come to a place where we're building these small sub-communities, right? These little micro communities where you can have a small grocery store and a little pub and like a dog park and all these things that are tied to one residential community. And I think people are kind of yearning for, in my opinion, subconsciously yearning for this desire to connect with one another because we're all so entangled on our devices all the time. And so this is a way that it can get people to be communicating in a small little community and engaging each other. I love it.
Yeah, if you can create those centers for people, I mean that is what draws people to those areas, right? Is well done development. That's what creates those communities. But at the same time, a lot of times, and you know, a lot of times developers are made out to be the bad guy, right? Because some people just don't want things to change in their area. But I look at where I live and what development has happened like right there around my area. It's changed it for the better. Right, the amenities, the resources, the restaurants, everything around there is just way better because of well done development, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if your heart is right, like to get people coming out and enjoying community, we're not meant to be creatures that were created in isolation.
Yeah,
I've never met someone who spent their whole life isolated and has come out like a socially functioning individual who's great. Like most of the people have socialized and function well when they're put into groups and enjoy each other's company and family systems and community systems. And I love the idea, like we're building communities. And that's the goal, right? That's the goal.
That's the goal.
I would hope that's the goal. It's not just I think a lot of people think developers just want to get rich and make money. I'm sure everybody wants to make money out of a profession they're doing to survive, but the goal, the big term goal is to make Boise a livable, engageable, fun, wonderful community. And the problem is it was just hidden that way for so long. And
when it's done right, it changes the community. Everyone's happy with it. Developers do make money, and everybody's like excited.
It's
about
a
the end product,
win-win-win, right? And then you got something like the Village where you go down there and you see some gal with 3 kids and they're having the time of their life on an ice skating rink.
Yeah.
And then they go get some pizza afterwards, and then they might meet their best friend there. And that's what development can do. And then they go to the apartment that they can afford close by or whatever it is. It's great. So
yeah,
that's good.
I love it. I think that's a good note to wrap on.
Yeah. And so Trever, how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about what you guys are doing, if they want to invest with you guys, if they want to, whatever?
Yeah. Feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to discuss any of that stuff. T Nicoll, TNICOLL @LPC.com.
And then you're on Instagram and LinkedIn, or where are you at?
I'm actually not on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look me up on LinkedIn if you want.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
put
a good
links in the
place.
show notes.
Yeah.
TVCRE is on Instagram, I think, right?
Sort of.
We're working on our
About as
social
much as
media.
I am,
rollout.
but you have a presence out there.
We
you're
have
out
an
there, but-
Instagram and we have an account. With the job change, I got locked out.
Yeah. Oh, that happens sometimes.
So I'm working on getting back in and getting the Instagram going again. But yeah, we've been leaning on LinkedIn as well for this.
We got some guys here in their 30s, like trying to understand
That's
social media.
right.
I think we got past maybe, but we're doing our best.
Yeah, we're doing okay.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We always appreciate having you, and thank you to Valiant Productions for letting us use their studios, and thank you, Trever, for coming on our show.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
There we go.
Thanks, Jack.